So how do you build other objects? Simple, simple, simple. We're going to start off with a raindrop. And I know people trying to draw a raindrop. And so, of course, this is how people try to draw a raindrop. They now know how to draw a circle, and we're going to make this blue for a nice little raindrop right there. And then they're like, oh, it's a raindrop that has a point. And now I know how to draw a triangle. So I go and I draw my triangle, and I've got that. And then I park it right here, and I know it's got a little triangle lid on there, and I'm going to scale it down, and I put it there, and I create that, and I try to line it up a little bit, and it doesn't quite line up, and I try to do that, and then it kind of sticks out a little bit, and now it looks more like a little kid with a cap on there, and it's like, oh, there's my raindrop, but that took an awful long time. Don't bother. Simple way to draw a raindrop, folks. Here it is. Start with a circle. I'm going to make it a different color so we can actually see our borders around there. There's our raindrop. All I want to do is just turn it into a nice little raindrop. So, direct selection tool. I'm going to grab the top handle right here. It gives you anchor points, and I know when people see anchor points, they freak out because they think of pen tool and they immediately stop. Again, we are just going to do simple construction here. I'm going to take my anchor, and I'm going to move it up. And I want to make sure that I move it up in a straight line, so I'm going to hold down my shift key while I'm moving up my anchor right here, because I don't want it to go from one side to the other. I don't want it to be a skewed little raindrop. I'm going to bring that up there. And now we've got this egg-shaped head. Simple. I'm going to go up to my control bar here, and we have very simple convert points here. Converts to a corner point, converts to a smooth point. Everybody that uses the pen tool, you know how to do this. Don't have to use the pen tool. You can. I'm going to just go to my convert point tool. I click on it, and there's my raindrop. Right there. Nice and simple. Gives nice rounded edges right there. And of course, people who know how to use the pen tool, you're going to go in with a pen tool here, hold down your option key, and suck those handles back in. It's the same thing. This is even more simple. Either way, okay? There's your raindrop. Wonderful. All taken care of. Look at that. How nice. Okay, but raindrops have dimension to them, right? So then you got to get the bevel and the emboss and the drop shadow and round the whole thing? No. Nice and simple icons here. Simple is the key word. So I'm going to draw a circle, like so. And I'm going to actually swap the fill for the stroke, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bump up the stroke here. And what I want to do is I want to create a highlight on my raindrop right here that's just going to be a nice little quarter circle, okay? Let's not overthink it. I'm going to do the simplest thing possible. I'm going to draw a circle so I can just take a quarter of that circle. Now the reason why I'm drawing this with a stroke instead of trying to draw a circle with another circle in the middle and then knock it out is because if I ever want to go in and create this exact same size highlight on another object that I'm drawing here, I did the stroke at 10 points. And now I know that this stroke is 10 points wide, so if I ever want to do this again, I do a very simple number. This is 10 points. If I draw a circle and knock out another circle in the middle of it, I have to make sure I get those circles the same size. Nope. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my stroke, I'm going to use my direct selection tool, and I'm going to get rid of the parts of the stroke that I don't want. Just select them with the direct selection tool, gone. If you would like to have rounded ends on your stroke, simple. I can go to my stroke panel and I can round the ends. Beautiful. And now, if I want my stroke, I'm just going to reduce it down in size here. There it is. And I'm going to put it over here as a nice little highlight. Now it's the same color. Quick and easy way to change the colors as you're going through and building an object here is I'm not going to go over to my color guide here, click on this, figure out the build of the colors here, expand all of my options, and then find out where my sliders are and start messing with the colors. Nope, not going to do it. Simple way. You want to go ahead and tint it or you want to shade it, simple way to do it. Go over to fill your stroke, whatever it is that you want to change, double click on it. When you double click on it, it calls up the Adobe Color Picker. It's great. All I want to do here is I want to be able to change the color so that I can get it lighter or darker right here. Well, I've got my hue, saturation, and brightness here. If I want to make it lighter, I'm going to slide it up there and it's going to show me. If I want to make it darker, it's going to do that and it's going to make it darker. In this case, I just want to lighten up this highlight here to give it a little bit more. I click OK. There's my highlight. Okay, make it a little bit lighter there. There it is. Slide it. I'm going to make it that much lighter. Boom. There's my highlight. Nice and simple. Okay. Now, that has rounded edges on it. Fine. If I'm doing infographics, they're going to have rounded ends on there. Doing it as a stroke, I never have to remember, oh, how big was that end? My stroke was 10 point. So if I'm going to be going through and doing my highlights here, I can just round the end of the 10-point stroke. Great. Wonderful. When I reduce the size of this here, it's staying at 10 points because I did not choose Scale My Stroke and Effects in my Transform window. If I did, then I'm going to have different size highlights and different size ends on my objects. If I don't want the square ends on here and I want round ends, or round ends instead of square, I can just go to my stroke panel and I can shut it off. Simple little highlight on a raindrop there. Rounded ends, square ends, no different whatsoever. Super, super, super simple. Now, if I want to convert this to a shape, and I have this as a shape here instead of as a stroke, so I can go ahead and I can apply a fill to it, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to kind of create a little stash of these things. I'm going to make this a different color so we can kind of see this a little bit better. You can always sample from another color. I'm going to create just a little stash over here of these things that I just know I'm going to use again. Okay? Because what happens when I go in and I take my highlight here and I convert it to a shape, I no longer have that stroke, and if I don't write it down, I'm not going to remember. So I just kind of create this little junkyard of stuff that I just go and I pull from here, and we're going to do that quite often as well. So I'm going to take my stroke, and I'm going to go back under my Object menu, under Path, and I'm going to outline that stroke, so now that it becomes an actual physical shape. A shape that now I can distort more so than actually going in and using the actual object. So this has a stroke because right there's the stroke and I can control the caps. This now becomes a fill and I no longer have the ability to do any caps or anything on there. But a nice little way to do a highlight here, you know, or if you want to do a shadow as well, simple and easy. I generally don't use soft drop shadows on items simply because then you just introduce a whole different thing, whole different narration to the story, and I just don't need to have that. I have everything as simple and as possible as can be. So there it is. And I call this my little macaroni noodle. Right there. That's the highlight. And you can do this on anything, folks. If I want to highlight an object like this, here's my color. I'm going to go in, I'm going to choose a color. There's my color. If I want to do a highlight on this, I'm just going to go and I'm going to draw another box. I'm going to draw my highlight right there. Double click on my color, lighten it up, and there's my little highlight on my object. Simple as can be. I don't need to do a cast drop shadow. I can, and I certainly will, not a problem. But I just want to make these as simple as an icon as absolutely possible, no matter what. So I want to do like a little page edge. Take my object here, I'm going to rotate it holding down my Shift key. I want to create a little page. And how do we create a page? We just do a flipped over corner. That's it. That's all we do. So if I want to do a little flipped over corner here, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to try to go in and edit this and add points to this and flip the entire corner over right there. I can just go in and I can draw a basic shape. I'm going to draw a shape like this. I'm just going to do my corner right here. I'm going to keep it so simple that I'm going to go in and I'm just going to take my direct selection tool and I'm going to select that point and I'm just going to simply get rid of that one side right there. Now, if this had a stroke around the entire thing, we would see a very noticeable opening in the edge of our container right there because we do not have a closed container. But in this case, I don't really care because this is going to be fill and it's going to fill to the point where I just fill and it connects the two endpoints with a straight line there. There really isn't a line. I'm going to then fill this with a lighter portion of this. And I now have my little corner that I can drop on here. So if I wanted to show multiple pages, I could go ahead and have my little page corner over, and I could have this in the background if I wanted to show multiple pages. If I didn't want to show multiple pages, what I would do is I'm just going to back up here. I'm going to take my shape. I'm just doing Command Z several times, get back to my shape. I could just go over here with the two items right there, select the two of them. I'm going to call up my Pathfinder tool, which we're going to use a lot. And I'm just going to get rid of that object in the front, right there. Nice and simple. Okay? Now, when I did this little knockout of the corner, and we're going to go full hog wild on the Pathfinder tool here, we're going to use it for everything. Couple things as we're going through this. I went in and I made a perfect square coming out of here. I didn't draw a rectangle, because if I drew a rectangle, I wouldn't know exactly what size rectangle to draw. I just did a square. That's it. So now I can very easily replicate this without any problem. I could just go right here and I could draw another square that fits perfectly. Use my direct selection tool, get rid of that corner, double click, and I can highlight that. And now I have a nice little corner edge with a piece of paper. Simple. Keep everything round, keep everything square, keep everything at the same angle, and make sure you use consistent stroke weights there so you always remember them. Don't use a stroke weight of 7.5. You know, make it 5, make it 10, whatever, something simple. If you want to use 7.5, use it on everything. It's all about simple construction. And we're going to do a lot more simple construction as we go. So there's my little raindrop with my highlight there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do some lines on my paper. So I'm going to take my line tool and I'm going to draw a basic line. And I want to go in and I want to sample this corner color. So I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool, samples it as my fill. Shift X will make it my stroke. I'm going to apply the stroke to it. I think it needs a little rounded ends on there. There's my rounded ends. I'm going to adjust my stroke to where I want it to be. There it is. And now I want to do multiple lines in the paper. So click on here, hold down my Option key. I'm going to hold down Shift because I want it to constrain, because if not, it's going to be all over the place. Shift is going to constrain when I duplicate, and I do that. Got to hold down the Option key, folks. There we go. Awesome. I've duplicated it. I want to repeat this. So the long way of repeating this is under the Object menu, Transform, and it's Transform again. Command D, Control D. All I think of that is duplicate. Command D, Command D, Command D, Command D. It's just duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. Command D, 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 B, boom. You now have a nice little icon, tablet, notepad, book, whatever it may be. Perfect corner, nice little rounded ends, beautiful little duplication right there. It all works. Awesome. There's my little note, there's my little pad. Who cares? It's nice and simple. And I use the same color from my little corner tab there to give it a nice little breakdown. You know, I'm not going to go in here and adjust everything via the values here. I'm going to do it right on the color picker, double click, and make it nice and quick. I can always pick up these values of color by using my eyedropper tool. Another nice feature is this. I'm going to select all these objects and I'm going to group them together so that when I move it, I don't accidentally move the things apart. Object Group, Command G, right there. But when I go in here, I realize that I want to remove one of these lines in here, and of course, when I click on my object, everything becomes active. If I ungroup it, then I have to ungroup it, deselect it, select it, then select it all and group it all back again. So we have what's called isolation mode. And you may have gotten into this, and this has been around for years and years and years, and nobody ever knew what it was. Groups of objects. If I want to get in here and edit a specific one, I'm going to click on my object and I'm going to double click. Gray bar comes across the entire screen here, showing me that I am now in isolation mode, right here. You'll notice everything else on the desktop goes gray, and I don't have the ability to click on any of that stuff because I've isolated this particular group. Now when I go in here, I can specifically click on any other item in here, independent of anything else. I don't have to ungroup the object. I've double-clicked on it in isolation mode and I've isolated it. I no longer want that line there. I want to have a headline and I want this line gone. When I'm done with this, I can hit Escape and I'm back out of isolation mode and my group is still grouped together. I didn't have to ungroup, deselect, select, regroup. I double-click, select the object, make any changes, hit the Escape key, gets me out of isolation mode, and there I am. Great for much more complicated objects, but super simple when we're doing an icon like that. So a whole bunch of other really easy things to do in the way of icons. You know, building objects. And as we get more into the Pathfinder tool, we talk about addition by subtraction, where we begin to add things together or subtract things to make basic shapes. Not trying to draw specific shapes, just going in and making basic shapes, however you want to. So one of the things that I love to do is going in and creating like a cloud. And I'm just going to use cloud. I'm just going to draw a circle. And I'm going to use this circle over and over and over again. Okay? And I'm not going to flatten it out, because once you begin to flatten it out and start drawing different circles here, let me make this a slightly different color so we can see this a little bit better. I'm just going to use this. It kind of looks like a storm cloud. We need a little bit more blue here. There we go. There it is. I just want to build a cloud. So I'm going to use my Option key, and I'm going to just duplicate. But how I'm going to duplicate this, sorry, I'm not finding the right color here. There we go, much better. I'm not just going to duplicate it like this and start putting it all over the place, which I can, because I can create kind of a cool cloud that way. I want to create a very specific cloud with kind of a grid structure in mind. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and I'm going to Option click and drag, and I'm going to basically have it be so that it connects on the center points or the edge points here. And as I click and drag and I move these items over, things are always going to line up in perfect places, so that when I do have my cloud here, I can have a very symmetrical looking cloud so that everything lines up perfect. Okay? Great. There's my nice little cloud. It looks nice and happy. If I wanted to go in and select multiple objects and extend the cloud here, I could, snapping it to everything, and maybe, you know, do a little thunderhead right there. It's a really simple cloud, but I've kept everything divided perfectly on the edges and on the centers here, so that even though it looks like a lot of stuff going on, when we dissect it, you can figure that out really quickly. And then you can have a little bit of fun with this kind of stuff, where you can go in and you can add some highlights and shadows just by simply going in here and changing the color of one of your objects. Or, if you don't want to do that, that little noodle that I had right over here, perfect. I can grab that noodle, I can bring it in, and I know that I can then go and I can scale it down so that it's going to fit really appropriately in there, and change the color to something that's going to work really good. And now I've got my little highlight there, or my little shadow, if I want to make it dark or I want to make it light. Copy that object, hold down my Shift key to rotate, keeping everything constrained beautifully. Park that in there as well, and now I can create a really cool icon of a more billowy cloud, and even go in here and rotate it even more. Not move it, there we go. Rotate it even more in place. And create different aspects of that as well. Nice little simple icon of a cloud. Raindrops, super easy. There's my cloud. Maybe a little bit too much, but hey, you can do a much more simple cloud if you want to. 3, 5, whatever, but it's all nicely lined up. Raindrops, love raindrops. Simple straight line. There we go. I'm going to choose the color. I'm going to do this as a stroke. And I'm going to round the stroke as well. A little bit more blue in there. Rounded end strokes. We can have some nice little rounded ends on there. And there's my raindrops right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the raindrops here. If I want to have a really hard rain, they're going to be close together. If I want to have a really soft rain, I'm going to put them further apart. And then, of course, Command D for duplicate. And I've got that nice and simple. And now it just looks kind of like blinds, you know, these vertical lines here. So, quick and easy way to create symmetrical looking rain without going in and dropping guides and making sure you have a certain distance. Now, I use my up and down arrows on my keyboard a lot to move things, because once I have something selected, if I want to move something, I could then go in and, you know, move it a couple ticks over, up, down, left, or right. I'm going to use that to my advantage when I'm creating these little raindrops here. I'm going to select the bottom of one of these, and of course if I go up or down, you can see that I can control the length. But when I introduce the Shift key, Shift is going to do it in certain intervals. I don't know how long those intervals are, but keeping everything in a grid structure in an orderly fashion here, I went in and I selected that point and I held my Shift key down and I did Shift up arrow 2 or 3 times. So that's 3 times, that's twice. I'm going to go in here and do Shift up down arrow once, grab this one, do shift up arrow once, do this one, shift up arrow twice. See how these line up together? Shift down arrow twice, shift up arrow a couple times, and there's my rain. Now, if I were to draw guides here, these are perfectly lined up, this is lined up with this, and these are all staggered. But they're all staggered at the exact same distance. And that distance was me going in and just taking my shift key and doing my up or down arrow, and it's shifting a certain number of points, that exact fixed amount. So now I have everything. It's not random, it's a very controlled, symmetrical random that I have. And there's my little raindrops right there from my cloud. Now I've got little rounded ends here, so probably putting rounded ends on my little highlights here makes sense, because I want to make sure that everything is going to be the same. Oh, that little piece that I stuck right over here, that little noodle that I made, it's still a stroke, so I can copy that, and I can go in and I can round the ends of that stroke, and then I can sample my color from there, and also control the size of it. I can take my little rounded stroke there, rotate it into position, and drop it into my clouds here, which are then going to bring it to the front, allow me to keep the same style and narration of my rain with my clouds, and now I can create something sunny, something rainy, and all nice and symmetrical, right there. And I always keep a little scrap pad on the side there for this kind of stuff.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
I believe that InDesign has a library function. If you wanted to save these little shapes that you make, does Illustrator have a library kind of thing that you would save them into, or how would you do that?
You know, I don't know if they do have a library or not. I'm sure they do. It's not something that I've ever actually used. Brush libraries, graphic style libraries. With that, that's a really great question. Because I use the libraries in InDesign for pulling graphics and logos and logo treatments and stuff like that. Illustrator, I work a little bit differently. I just kind of keep a little scrap pile, which I do in no other application. But you can see why I keep my little, you know, gold nuggets over there just for this exact purpose. Right there. Yep. So I have my nice little cloud here, billowy cloud, soft cloud, whatever, and I've got my nice little symmetrical rain. So works pretty awesome. Now, of course, if you want to do sunshine, you want to do a moon, there's a whole bunch of other ways to do this. So I'm going to show you another classic icon, the eyeball. Trying to do the eyeball. And if you've ever tried to draw an eyeball, of course, you go to the pen tool, you click here, and you do your curve right here, and you're like, oh, that's perfect. And then, of course, you try to do this, and there's your eyeball. And you're just like, you know, I can't draw the eyeball. So you try all these other arc features and everything else. Okay. Here's addition by subtraction, how to do an eyeball. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take an oval here, and I'm going to or a circle. I'm going to draw a circle, like so. I'm going to fill it with a color. Boom. There it is. How do you get an eyeball out of this? I don't know, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. So here's how you do an eyeball. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my Option key, I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to duplicate it so that it actually snaps, the center snaps to the edge right here. And the resulting shape right here, with using my Pathfinder tool, I'm going to go in with my Pathfinder tool, and I'm going to go ahead and choose where they intersect, and I'm going to make my eyeball. Where these two overlap is what's going to be left. I click on that, that's my eyeball. Right there. I can rotate that, like so. There it is. If I want to put a little dot in the center, grab my circle tool. I can find the center right here. Zoom right in. I can find the center right there. Now I want to draw my shape right from the center. So I find the center, hold down the Option key and the Shift key right there. There it is. Grab my eyedropper tool, pick up the color. There's my eyeball. Perfect. Nice and simple. Trying to draw a curve and trying to match a symmetrical curve on the other side with the pen tool is not easy. Don't do it. Make it as simple as you possibly can. Build the shapes really simply. There's your eyeball. You want to go ahead and you want to make a leaf? Simple. I'm just going to grab my eyeball right there, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to rotate it at a 45-degree angle. I'm then going to go in and I'm going to choose a nice little green color for my leaf. there it is, and there's my leaf. Wow, that works really good. And Option click and drag, I can create another leaf. Option click and drag, hold down my Shift key, rotate, turn a 45-degree angle, park it in there so it falls right in the middle, all nicely lined up. I could make it easier, but not much. If you want to go in and you want to put some little veins in your leaf here, it's a whole lot easier to rotate your object vertically. Go in and control that. You can put a line down the middle of it, find the center of your line there. Go ahead and I'm going to apply a stroke, and I'm going to pick a stroke color that's going to be a darker green right there. Beautiful. There it is. I may round the ends if I want to. Get my little rounded ends. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to produce a little offspring. I'm not going to draw another one. I'm going to use what I have because that prevents me from having to do too many steps. Option click and drag over here. I'm going to shorten it up and I'm going to rotate that a certain distance, and then I can move that right over there like so. I'm going to option click and drag this, hold down my Shift key again, rotate the opposite direction, park it right in there as well. There's my leaf. Take everything, group it, rotate that as a unit, and I can duplicate that as we go. Want to change aspects of the leaves? Double click while it's in isolation mode, and I can get rid of certain aspects there. Hit escape to get out. Simple, easy change. Everything's done at a 45, 90-degree angle. Right there. Nice and simple leaves. You want to make it even simpler? Just knock that out to white. Nice and simple. Not a lot of detail as we go through. Another way that we can draw shapes here. You want to draw the moon? Sure. I'm going to use the exact same thing. I'm going to draw a circle, just like I would do. Shift X is going to swap the stroke for the fill. And let's pick a blue moon here. There we go. And again, I'm going to draw the moon. Well, obviously, I'm going to do addition by subtraction as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my circle, but I'm not going to duplicate it so that it overlaps completely here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it ever so slightly so that I can see the slight little duplicate right there. Again, with my Pathfinder tool, I'm going to go in and I'm going to subtract the front here, and I'm left with that sliver. Try to draw that with a pen tool. I know people have. You get the curve just right on the outside, but getting the curve just right on the inside, then you spend 15 minutes tweaking the little moon shape to get that to be right. Then, of course, once you do that, then you can rotate that at a 45-degree angle, and you've got a nice little moon. Want to do a little smiley face? Sure, not a problem. Just go in and do a little smiley face right there. Got your little smiley face. Then you can go ahead and have your happy little green thumb right there, or your nice little alien with a leaf as a face. Sure, not a problem. When you do something like this, and you do it all symmetrically here, then it's a great thing that you can do because you can nest other items in here really well, and the shapes are going to conform really, really, really well. So I was just able to go in and copy my little circle here, and now you can form somebody with arms coming out with a nice little head. If I then duplicate this and I swing this around right here, you can have a person or something or a vessel or things moving either way, either direction. So you got the little up, up arms, little down arms as well. Works really good. And this is why I use circles, this is why I use squares, because when you start throwing ovals in there or rectangles, then things get to be a little bit tricky and a little bit weird, because then you have to remember what's not working right. If you always do circles, always do squares, always do everything at a very fixed angle, everything's going to be just where you need it to be. And you can build on this stuff, nice and easy. Okay, so it's all coming together really good. Now we've got people and eyeballs and moon and, rain and a little piece of paper with a raindrop as well, little windmill, everything else. So just going through drawing basic shapes, it's amazing how quickly you can start to form things in your mind. Well, I can anyway. Hopefully you can see this process here. And we're going to spend a lot more time with the Pathfinder tool after the break, but I do want to show you some other just rockin' cool stuff that's just like so ridiculously simple. So we've gone in and I just showed you how to do some really basic shapes here. I'm going to move these things out of the way. And I start to create a nice little pile of stuff. Now, I started with just an 8.5 by 11 document, and I need more space as I go. So what I'm going to do is, over in the toolbar, right above the hand tool, is the artboard tool. Not a page tool, it's the artboard, folks. This is Illustrator, not Pages. So I'm going to click on my artboard adjustment. This gets me into my artboard adjustment mode, and I can click and I can drag my artboard larger, which gives me more space. I don't want to create multiple files here. I want to be able to start building my assets. So I'm going to then drag all this stuff and kind of park these things so we can see as we go how we begin to build this. And it also gives me a better sense of my spacing and my overall construction of these things so that I keep everything as consistent as possible. So basic shapes, drawing these kind of things, one of the things that people love to do is banners. Banners and ribbons for the headline. Because you start a story and you want to have a headline on the top there. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to draw a rectangle right here, and we're going to make this red. We need this thing to be red. So there's my headline, there's my banner right there. And I use this because I'm going to use these complementary colors here. Awesome. Okay, there's my red banner. And what I'd love to do is I'd love to go in and create that ribbon effect that allows you to have a little ribbon that folds back on itself or changes direction. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I want to have my ribbon kind of come back here and then come back out, kind of create a dimensional ribbon. And so this is what I'm going to do. Here's my ribbon, and I want to have it fold back on itself. I'm not going to draw anything new. I'm going to continue to use this ribbon because if I start drawing other shapes, I may not get the height and the size quite right, and then I have inconsistencies. So I'm going to duplicate this right here, and I'm going to reduce the length of it like so. I'm going to pick a darker color because it's going to be behind. In fact, I'm just going to go and I'm just going to lighten this one up here. And so there's the color. I'm just going to lighten it up to get a lighter banner right there. So this is going to be behind, so it's going to be slightly darker. And I use these shortcuts, and I fail to tell people. This is what I'm doing to bring things to the front, send things to the back under the object menu. Shift left bracket, Shift Command left bracket is going to go ahead and shove everything to the back. Shift Command right bracket brings everything to the front. Command right bracket and Command left bracket steps things forward one step at a time or steps things backwards. So send everything to back, Shift Command left bracket. Now my object is right behind here, and there it is. But what I want to do is I want to make this so that it creates a nice little angle. So I'm going to take my selection tool, and I'm going to hold down my Shift key and my up and down arrow tool. You notice how I'm not doing it just like randomly? I'm literally doing 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks. That way I know if I ever have to rebuild this thing, it isn't, oh, a little bit more, a little bit more. It's literally 1, 2, 3, 4. If I need to do it more, I can do it more. And I know that, I don't care if it's 4 or 6, I know that it is that certain amount. I'm going to make it 5, even better. Then I'm going to take my selection tool, I'm going to park it right up behind, and the reason why I went in and I duplicated this is because now I know this duplicated one is exactly the same size. If I snap it to it, I don't have to worry about having it be a 1/64 of an inch larger or smaller. It's the same size. It snaps right into place. So I have that, and there is my little ribbon. I'm going to take this object and I'm going to duplicate it right over here. And then I can go in and I can flip it the way. And I can literally, I want to show you how easy this works. I'm going to take this end here, and I had used the down arrow, Shift down arrow 5 times. If I do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I now know I have the exact angle. I don't care what the angle was. I was able to reproduce it very simply due to the way I build my objects. So now I have my ribbon going down here. I went down 1 too far, didn't I? There we go. Perfect. And it lines up. I didn't have to use any guides. So there's my little ribbon. I can then take this ribbon right here, duplicate it again. I'm going to reduce the size of that ribbon and pull it off to the side here. And I'm going to park it right there, put it behind, and now I have my little ribbon that then looks like that. Wow. There you have it. If these are too long, I could very easily go in here and I can adjust it, but I'm not going to adjust them just randomly. I take my direct selection tool, Shift, left arrow, 2, 3, 4, 5. That way I can do this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I have the exact same distance. Keep everything consistent. You try to do it manually, You know what happens. You've seen it before. So there's my ribbon. Wow, great. But here is the clincher. I love this. Absolutely love this. Did I tell you I love this? I love doing infographics. So I want to do a ribbon that changes direction. So I'm going to grab one of my ribbons here and I'm going to duplicate this. And what I want to do is I'm going to duplicate this again. I'm going to rotate this. And what I want to do is I want to flip my ribbon. So as you go, I want to go to the corner and I want to fold it over itself so that it actually creates a 45-degree angle, and then it goes the opposite direction. So a lot of different ways people do this is they're like, okay, so I've got this right here and I want to make this, so this is a 45-degree angle right here, and then it's like, okay, so then I have to take my direct selection tool and I kind of have to move this, you know, up like this in order to get that ribbon to go down the side there, and it's like, oh, okay, that's what I want. But if this width isn't at the perfect point of moving the point up and down, then I get this funny little angle. I want to make sure I know I have a 45-degree angle. I'm going to undo this. I'm going to show you the simplest way to do this ever. And I know people are going to be like, really? And the answer is yes, really. Here's how to do a corner. I'm going to grab a corner. Is that perfectly straight? Yeah. And here's how you do a corner. I'm going to take the 2 points. I'm going to marry them to the inside corners, just like that. So I have a big gap right here. Now, if I want my red to be on front or my pink to be in front, it's all a matter of which one I choose. Direct selection tool. If I click on the corner of my red one, I can drag it down and snap it to the corner. Now, it comes and it folds. Perfect. Okay, pink's underneath, red's on top. If I want to change that, I'm going to undo this. I'm going to grab the pink inside corner. I'm going to pull that to the edge right there, and I've now changed the fold direction. Just like that. No introduction of another triangle there, no adding a triangle to the whole system there, just adjusting the corners. It's going to be a 45-degree angle because I made sure that the width was similar or the same on both of them. Because I didn't draw 2 different ones, I simply duplicated exactly what I have. Saves a whole lot of time and hassle. And now I've got my little corner points right there. And just for fun, I'm going to then go in and I'm going to change the direction. I'm going to copy this again and I'm going to put it right up here, and we're going to show you how to change the direction yet again. So if this one folds under here and this folds under, then this is going to fold onto the top. So I'm going to select my red again, click on that one corner with the direct selection tool, drag it right up there, and I now have my ribbon folding as if we have dimension going on here, and I now have created this ribbon. And it's only 3 containers. That's it. Now, I'm not a big fan of drop shadows, okay? But if you want to add a highlight to this thing, it's so easy. I'm just going to take my line tool and I'm just going to throw a line right in here, like so. And I'm going to grab the color here, swap the fill and the stroke, double click on the stroke, lighten it up a bit, and there's my highlight. That simple. You don't have to do any more. It works great. If you want more, then go ahead and just adjust the stroke weight, and you have more of it there. If you want to round the ends, great. Not a problem. But here's another cool thing if you want to add dimension without actually adding cast shadows. We're going to spend more time on this as well. But what I'm going to do here is I want to give this more of an effect that this is kind of a shadow area. If I put a soft glowing shadow, it's then going to puddle out around here, and then I have to worry about the right depth and the right shadow and the right color and keeping it consistent. No way. Not going to do it. So I'm going to do this. This is so much fun. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to create a nice little row right here. And I'm going to pick a color, and there's my color right there. So I'm going to make this a little bit darker as I go, and probably a little bit darker than that. Okay, there's my shadow. I'm going to cut the stroke down so that it's not too big. I think I'm going to round the corners. Don't know why I have this thing for rounded corners today. But then I'm going to option click and drag, and I'm going to duplicate. When I do that, what that does is that gives me the impression of a drop shadow there without actually having a drop shadow. The closer together they are, the more they're going to cast. And now, when you zoom out there, it makes it look like we have a drop shadow. right there. Okay? If you wanted to fade off in the distance, then what you could do is you could duplicate these items numerous times, and then to give the fade off there, then I would just go in and I would deselect every one to give them close together and then further apart. I wouldn't manually put them further apart because then you start disturbing that pattern. So I could do that and then put it further apart, and that helps imply that the shadow starts to dissipate. And again, once I create one of those, I can grab those, group those, copy them, go up here, put this in the center of my screen, paste them, rotate them, and now I have my shadow right where I want that to be. And of course, I'm going to then change the color so that it better matches that, a little bit darker than that pink right there, like so. And now I have my implied shadows on there, but simple. And this is all about icons. Simple as possible. I don't need a cast drop shadow. I can do a slip shadow. I can do a highlight, my little highlight noodle right there, and it's all done. Nice and simple. Lots of great ways to do it. I don't have to use lines either, folks. Maybe circles will work really good. Yeah. So if I go in and use circles right here, there it is. There's a circle. Switch that, and Option, click and drag, duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. There we go. Maybe one more. Awesome. Grab those, move those up right where they're supposed to be. Duplicate those, duplicate, duplicate. Wow, there it is. Go in there, move it down right there. And you can see how it gives a great effect right there. Color's a little bit off. I'd need to go ahead and tweak that color a bit. And we're going to talk all about color and getting them just right. I'm just kind of winging the color right now, but there's a great way to do a highlight or a shadow on whatever you want to do. If you want to give something a rounded look, sure, you can go in and just apply it right on that edge there. It's all good, all happy. Pretty sweet, huh? Mm-hmm. You've ever seen, and you see a lot of these on websites now all the time, where they go in and they have the page right here. I'm going to grab this little page, I'm going to duplicate it so I can redo this. And what they do is they have a little banner coming over the object, and with that banner, they have the little ribbon that comes over the side, and this is how they do it. They have their container, and they draw their little ribbon that comes over there. Shift right there. And then, in order to do that little ribbon that goes behind there, to make it look like a little tab stuck on the side, I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to darken the color right there. And then I'm going to reduce this down in size. Take my direct selection tool, move that down like so. And then I take that, I park it right behind, and let me do a slightly different color here because I'm not getting much contrast with the background, but that's how I can go in and I can create that nice little slip shadow of the ribbon, making it look like it goes around my object, right there. This could be a little bit above the page, simple. I can either just draw a really slim rectangle, but I'm going to draw a line because that way I know if I put a drop shadow right here on my object coming out here, I can very easily duplicate that line at any point so that I know that it's going to be a certain point line with my object, and that's going to be a 1 point line right there, and that can be my drop shadow under there with a slightly less impactful line. And if I ever want to do that drop shadow there, I know that it's always a 1 point drop shadow under there, so it can be consistent. And if I want to have fun with my pencil tool, I realize that I want to put my line going all the way up here. I can take my pencil tool, new feature, and I can click on the end here and just shift click and draw right on up, and I now have a nice little slip shadow right there. Beautiful, done, icon, simple as can be. That may be a little bit too close. I may just bump it out even more to give that effect right there. Simple as can be. And if I wanted to duplicate this drop shadow here, I didn't just draw a rectangle, I drew a very specific line. So if I want to have that same shadow up here, take my pencil tool, I'm going to click and drag right here, and then shift click and drag right there. I can get it the same color, the same point size, and now I have the same implied drop shadow. Keep everything the same. The more you do manually and the more you mess with stuff manually, the more issues you're going to have. Keep it all the same. It makes life so much easier.
Nice.
So much easier.
Hey, up for a couple quick questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Sherry would like to know, when clicking Option-Shift-Drag to duplicate the object, how do you control the amount of space between the objects?
So something like this, where I was doing the spacing right here, this is all done kind of by eye. And as you get a little bit better, you kind of eyeball it. But what we can do is you can go in and you can actually do, we can do spacing, and I'll show you how to do that spacing, because I may have certain objects that I want to have a certain distance in between, and I can control that using my distribute feature, which is very important to do, especially when you have multiple size objects and you want to have equal space in between the two or equal space between the centers. So something that we will show you because it's important.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Jason.
But with these, I just eyeballed.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.